point, you guys should have finished working with Photoshop and getting your image to have those high contrasting spots really visible, so that way in Illustrator here you're going to be able to trace the image well. First thing you need to do is open your Photoshop document. Yes, you can open a Photoshop document in Illustrator. So you want to go ahead and go File, Open, find the document, and when you find that document, make sure you just hit Open. You will know if that preview button is checked. You will know that you have your image set up properly by the fact that you have the white all around the actual subject of yourself. You don't have to worry about the other options at the bottom because we've already done all of this editing and we're not dealing with text. So go ahead and hit OK. Once you hit OK, you'll see that you are front and center on your screen. If you go on over to your Layers panel, you'll see that it's Layer 0 Copy because that is what we left off with in Photoshop. When you open it up, it's just Layer 0 Copy because each layer in Illustrator is created out of paths and created out of other objects. So when you place an image in or open up an image in Illustrator, it's going to put everything within a layer as a sub-item. We're going to head and close this up for right now. If you notice, when I hover over the image, you see this red line pop up. That red line indicates where the actual image is located in the bounding box for it, which is the same size as the Illustrator document was. And when I click on it, notice the square that popped up in the Layers panel. That square indicates this is actually selected. If I open it up, it shows what's selected in that layer. What we want to do now is actually adjust our transparency. By making this image a little more transparent, it will be easier to see what you're tracing. So you want to go ahead to Appearance, and when you go to Appearance and you click on Opacity, it pops up open the little opacity window. The opacity changes the transparency, the viewability. I'm dropping down about 50%, and you can see I could still see where those differences are. So I know I can still trace pretty well. Now going back to your Layers panel, in your Layers panel, we want to actually lock this layer. So we're going to go ahead and click on the lock, and now we can't actually edit anything. If you notice, I have a little pencil with a no symbol. That means you cannot edit on what you currently have selected. We need to create a new layer. This new layer needs to be named. This new layer can be named anything that is representative of what is in it. Naming your layers at this point is super important because it allows you to go back through and know where everything is and know what it is without having to change the visibility. By changing the visibility, that's that little eyeball. When you click it, whatever is there disappears. You don't want to be going and clicking on 20 different eyeballs to figure out where something is. So this is going to be head. If you have a full body shot, it could be full body, whatever way you want to do it, because you can make sublayers. Sublayers allow you to group other things underneath the main layer. So if I was to do a whole nother layer, I'd probably end up doing shirt as its own layer. But for right now, we're just going to focus on the head. We're using the pen tool specifically. When I go to the pen tool, this is where you click and make your actual anchor points. I'm going to go ahead and start on the side of his ear over here. And I just click. And remember, with this, you have your stroke, your fill, you have the anchor points that allow you to go and edit each individual thing as you move along. And right now, if you notice, I actually did not change any of my settings. So as I move along, unless I'm just doing the outside, then it's going to be very difficult to actually know what I'm touching, like right here. How do I know where to go? So I'm actually going to delete that. Before you start tracing, don't do a filled trace with your pen tool. Change your fill to none. Change your stroke color to a nice bright color. I tend to use like a pink You do not have to. Pinks are bright typically, but not always. You need to use a color that you think will be easy to see against yourself and the background that you're in. So now, and I'm going to actually up the stroke to a 2-point stroke instead of a 1-point stroke. Now when I go and I click, I get my first anchor point, and I create another point. And as I keep moving, you could see the pink on the stroke, and you could see where you are, where you've been. There's no questioning. If it's not perfect in this trace, it's okay. The reason that it's okay is because you're using the pen tool. You're an illustrator. Illustrator allows you to modify every single point. It allows you to add points. And since I decided I was going to focus on the head first, I'm focusing in on his head. If a curve doesn't go right, and actually I'll end up going back and adding in his neck here in a minute. So I should have gone and put his neck. And I'm actually going to go a little bit beyond the shirt just to allow myself a little bit of space in here. And I'm trying not to overlay the actual points already. And I'm going to take my shape builder, since I have two shapes here. Make sure you hold down Shift, not cap locks. And with the shape builder, I can go and create one shape there, which is what I truly want, is one shape for his entire head. Now, in order to edit your individual points, you have a couple of different things that you can do. First thing I would suggest that you do is zoom in. I'm going to zoom into this point over here that's really kind of weird. You have your direct selection tool that you directly select by double clicking. And then you can go and edit the actual handles. With the direct selection tool and editing those actual individual handles, as you're pulling on the different positions and you're pulling on those handles, if you don't like the way that it's editing, if you press and hold Alt and click on that single handle, it's only going to adjust the one side of your anchor point. And this is super important where you have those weird little angles that just don't make sense. You can't really do anything right with them. So if you press and hold the Alt key, then you just can adjust the one side. And you want to remember that for all editing in Illustrator here. You can really modify every bit of the information. You can even make a spot that is kind of pointy, like that one is, and hit the convert to a smooth spot, and there it goes. So I can just bring it back on in, and now it has a slight curve to it, nothing dramatic, just like this one here. Convert point, and then I can go and edit the individual handles for the overall tracing of his head there. When I come back out, it's not perfect, but it's definitely a good start. I was able to correct for a missing piece here, which I might still end up changing later because of his ear and his hair. It doesn't matter that it's pink. It really doesn't. You could have this be any color. You could fill it with pink. It doesn't really help you with your design, but it is something that you can do. In the layers panel, what you want to do now is where it says head, and you have those different paths, you want to go ahead and name this outline of head. The reason for naming it outline of head is to let you know it's the overall head. It's everything there. Because as we move forward, remember I talked about the different details, the hair, the lips, the nose, the eyes, all of those little pieces. This is where it becomes really important. A little side note here, if you control click outside of your current selection, it will make it so the next time you click, it's going to be a new selection. Now is when you need to decide, all right, it's time to do the eyes. So we're going to go ahead and start tracing on his eyes. And you can see some of you guys, you kind of squint a little bit. It's okay. So there's one eye. If I control click, it lets go of that selection. I can go ahead and get the next eye started. And obviously I've got some weird angles going on there, and that's okay, because I can go back and edit those points with my direct selection tool. But you probably can see here the importance of having that pink color or something that is a little bit descriptive of where you're working to really allow you to edit those points. And sometimes you have to zoom in more than you already were. So this got a little distorted. If I alt click, sorry, that one point, I can, oop, there it goes. Let's try that one more time. Alt click on the handle there, I can bring in that angle a little bit. I might need to also bring in an anchor point. And all of it, eventually, you can get just right. That one, I'm going to go ahead and let the program curve, and then I can move it in a little bit. And now, if you notice, I just made a bunch of new lines, a bunch of new paths. This path here is an extra path that I don't know when I made it, but I'm getting rid of it. Probably when I did that create shape tool. But here I have two eyes. At this point, it's even getting confusing. Is this left eye or right eye? So you want to make sure you label things. You can't just duplicate an eye unless you have the exact perfect face, which I believe science has proven no one really does. But by doing that combination, you can then group everything together if you wanted to. You can make copies, you can make a subgroup. Right now, just leave it alone. You don't have to do anything other than leave it alone and be labeling, because you're probably going to end up wanting to have the eyeball and everything else as you're moving forward. But this time to do all these little traces, the lips, the teeth, the nose, the nostrils, the hair, this should take you a lot of time. So I'm going to go ahead and leave you for now so I can get my tracing done, and when we come back we'll start working on where these different points are with the highlights and lowlights. So go ahead, get all of your pieces traced. Make sure you are naming them, because don't forget, you will be graded on that. And we'll go in more into the different organization of these layers and the importance of the hierarchy of these layers as we move forward. So good luck and have some fun.